Welcome back, one and all, to another Horror Game Tales. Indie games. They are everywhere these days, especially in the horror genre no less. To those not in the know of what an indie game is, it is basically a game that is created by developers who are not a multi-million-dollar company like, say, Konami, Capcom, Square Enix, but rather by a small group of people, or a single person, who basically create a game and then release the game for free or for a small amount of money to the general public. And usually this is either through a website of theirs, or a Kickstarter, or if you're lucky enough, onto the Steam platform. This actually is kind of intriguing to me because back in the days of Amiga, Atari, and all those other old-fashioned computer game systems, the fact you have one person, or even a small group of people, work on games that were not in a company was not new back in the day. Yeah, people could actually create their own games and put them out on the market if they wanted, which led to a bunch of troubles with the video game crash and all that. Yeah, sealer quality was not a big deal back then. But anyway, that was the past. It's not surprising then to see that this trend actually make a return of some description, and it feels very refreshing to basically play all these different experiences that you can get, because you just never knew what you're going to get with some indie developers sometimes. And sometimes they could be really innovative. I remember my first experience with the indie horror game genre was when I played a certain game called Slender the 8 Pages. Now this was all the rage back in the day of when the Slender Man mythos and origins were a huge popular thing back in the day, which is not that long ago actually if you think about it, but it does feel like a long time ago. But yeah, Slender the 8 Pages was based on the Slender Man mythos, which scared a lot of people, including myself, which is a creepypasta story, which is basically the digital version of ghost stories told around a campfire. Now, the thing was with Slender the 8 Pages was, this game preyed on the fear of being stalked, because the concept of the game is, while you're walking around this forest with a camera and a flashlight, you could actually end up being stalked by the Slender Man himself. And who wouldn't be scared of, seeing a tall, skinny creature or whatever just following behind them while still standing still while looking at them, and yet they would constantly move every time you would not look at them. It's definitely one of those games that definitely feeds off of that fear. But if you knew what you were doing, then you could actually beat the game very easily without even looking behind you once, if you knew where the pages were going to be, and if you just rushed through the forest in a certain order, and you would end up not seeing the Slender Man at all, which was a very interesting little thing. But that would not be the only time I've experienced an indie horror game. Oh no. I then went on to the SCP Containment Breach, which is based off of a certain Wikia page, which is developed to look like a FBI secret agent sort of thing that has documentations and secret files on creatures and yada yada yada. But that's generally what it is all about to those not in the know. And I played this game called SCP Containment Breach, which basically had a lot of different creatures that you could find. Though the main one you would end up having to deal with was SCP-173, who not only stalked you, but would crack your neck if he caught you when you were not looking at him. But the thing is, it had a blinking system, meaning that if you were blinking, the creature, what SCP-173, would move, which is a very interesting mechanic. But just like Slender the 8 Pages, it's a bit of a novelty system, really. Well, it's a novelty kind of game, to me anyway. It's kind of gimmicky in that sense. Though, to be honest, I was impressed with SCP Containment Breach for basically, having to use your very own sight to either to basically stop the creature from moving, or to basically avert your gaze from another creature so you didn't look at its face. And from there on, there was plenty of other indie horror games that I really liked, or I had questionable thoughts about it. like Five Nights at Freddy's is really good on setting a good mystery out and basically want you to fill in all the pieces essentially of all of the entire thing, even though you pretty much know the big backstory of everything that happened. But sadly, gameplay is not the strong suit, considering. Well, to me it's not the strongest part of the game, especially if you go further down the line of Five Nights at Freddy's games that get too overly complicated for its own good. But to be honest, each one has its upsides and downsides to it, depending on what you make of it. And it's all very subjective anyway, that game anyway, from a gameplay standpoint. But I remember two particular games that really got under my skin for different reasons. One of them was called Never-Ending Nightmares. And Never-Ending Nightmares was basically a game where you're living literally a nightmare that starts over and over and over and over again. And you're trying to basically get out of this nightmare as this guy who keeps having these bad visions of not only killing this woman or seeing the dead corpse of this woman in some way, but also of killing himself or self-mutilations of some description. And seeing that just really gets under you, especially with its foreboding art style. To those who are big fans of that game, the guy is actually creating another game in the similar style, but it's going to be based around a different kind of fear the guy is going through right now, and I'll be interested in seeing that, because Never-Ending Nightmares really got under my skin just because of its imagery and overall execution of the style. It just really takes it out of you. Though that is nothing compared to one game that Mad Hog introduced me to. And it's a game I really, really never want to play again just because of how much it scared the cradola out of me. And this was a little game called Anatir's Descent, which was a mod for an SCP game, but I forgot the number sadly. I think it was 2-something-B. I know it was basically a game that was based off on the original, which involved going downstairs. So yeah, the creator used this game, and then using that system, was able to create such a closed and dark atmosphere that just thinking about it just gets under my skin. Not only did you have the creepy voices of her talking in your ear, but you also had all these other things that just made you just, I don't know what to say. It was like, there was all these different kinds of monsters you had to deal with in different ways, and once you got the pattern down, it was fine. But because of the atmosphere and the overall terror the game puts you under, it just makes you fear going down every floor, because I have nothing else to say really about the game. It scared me that much having to play that even once, and I would not play it again. But you know what? I was glad I experienced it because it really gives you the feeling. The creator who made that game wanted to give you a small sense of what people have to go through with that sort of feeling every day of their lives. And just having the chance to feel that is really inspiring, to see that such a creator would go her way to just basically put all her energy and emotions that she feels into a game in such a way, especially for the entertainment medium. I think that deserves a lot of respect. You know what, after talking about all these indie developed horror games, it makes me feel glad that we have this, you know? Because where AAA companies fail, we at least have people like this who are going out of their way, creating horror experiences unlike any other that you could find. It's like indie developed horror games are like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get, and you might regret even picking one out in the first place. Anyway, I think that's enough talking about indie developed horror games. I thank you all once again for joining me, and I hope you all join me next time for yet another Horror Game Tales. Take care, everyone.